This is the best kept secret in the tool industry that you need to know. The tool named after an animal has nothing to do with that animal. The design that could have prevented thousands of plumbing disasters almost didn't get made because a company boss thought his own employee's idea would fail. And the reason your socket set can tighten a bolt to an exact precise number instead of just however hard your arm can turn it comes from one frustrated city water worker in 1918. This is the history of the wrench, and almost none of it is what you'd expect. Screws and bolts have existed since antiquity, but for most of that history, nobody needed a specialized tool to turn them because there was no such thing as a standard nut or bolt. Every fastener on every wagon, every gun, every piece of furniture was hand-fitted to its own specific hole. If you needed to tighten something, a blacksmith made you a wrench that worked for that one job and nothing else. That started to change in the late 1700s in England. Coachmakers were building wagons and carriages with wheels attached by threaded nuts, and those nuts varied wildly in size from one carriage to the next. So English toolmakers built simple adjustable wrenches, a fixed jaw and a sliding wedge, specifically so a single tool could handle several different wagon sizes. These were crude, but they were the first hint that one wrench could replace an entire drawer of specialty tools. That idea would define the next 100 years of the wrench's evolution. In 1835, a man named Solymon Merrick, working out of Springfield, Massachusetts, filed the first American patent for an adjustable wrench, a tool with jaws that opened and closed by turning a screw. It was, on paper, a modest improvement on the English coach wrench. In practice, it kicked off a wrench patenting arms race that lasted the rest of the century. Now, here's the part almost everyone gets wrong. If you've ever heard that the monkey wrench is named after its inventor, a man named Charles Monkey who supposedly sold his patent and bought a house with the money, that story is fiction. It shows up for the first time in print in the 1880s, telling a tidy little tale about a humble inventor. The problem is, the term monkey wrench was already appearing in British tool catalogs decades earlier, as far back as 1807, and there is no patent record anywhere for a Charles Monkey. Historians and etymologists have picked this story apart piece by piece, and it does not hold up. Nobody actually knows for certain why it's called a monkey wrench. The leading theory is that English workers thought the jaws resembled a monkey's face, but the neat inventor story you've probably heard is simply not true. What is true is that by the 1840s, companies like Coase in Massachusetts were mass-producing smooth-jawed adjustable wrenches by the hundreds of thousands, and monkey wrench became the catch-all name for almost any adjustable wrench in America for the next 70 years. This decision seemed small at the time. It was not. An entire generation of factory workers, railroad men, and machinists grew up with exactly one wrench word in their vocabulary, and it stuck so hard that it's still an idiom today, throwing a monkey wrench into a plan. By the 1860s, American cities were racing to install indoor plumbing, steam heating, and gas lines. That created a brand new problem the monkey wrench was never built for. Monkey wrenches have smooth jaws. Smooth jaws work fine on a flat hexagonal nut. They do not work on a round metal pipe. A smooth jaw just slides right off, or worse, crushes and warps the pipe as it slips. A mechanic named Daniel Stillson, who had served on a Union Navy steamship during the Civil War, ran into this problem constantly while working for the Walworth Company in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So he carved a wooden prototype of a new kind of wrench, one with angled serrated teeth that bit into a pipe's surface instead of sliding across it, and a jaw with just enough built-in play that pulling the handle actually tightened the grip rather than loosening it. Stillson brought the wooden model to his bosses in 1869. They liked it enough to have a steel version made, and it worked so well that Walworth built its entire manufacturing reputation around it. The Stillson wrench, or pipe wrench as most people call it today, became so dominant that it remained the industry standard for more than 50 years, and some original Stillson wrenches from the 1890s were still being used in the 1920s. Stillson himself earned an estimated small fortune in royalties over his lifetime, proof that sometimes solving one very specific unglamorous problem is worth more than any grand invention. Here's where the story gets genuinely surprising. For nearly 100 years after Merrick's first patent, tightening a bolt was still a matter of feel. A mechanic tightened something until it felt right. That was fine for a wagon wheel. It was a serious problem for something like a steam pipe joint, or later an airplane engine, where a bolt tightened even slightly too loose or too tight could fail catastrophically. In 1918, a foreman at the New York City Water Department named Conrad Bahr got tired of watching flange bolts on water mains fail because different workers were tightening them with with wildly different amounts of force. So he designed a wrench that didn't just apply torque, it measured it. His early design deflected slightly under load, giving a visual read of exactly how much force was being applied. In 1935, Bahr and an engineer named George Pfefferly patented a refined, ratcheting version that clicked audibly the instant a bolt reached its correct torque. This sounds like a small mechanical trick. It is not. Once you can measure torque instead of guessing at it, you can write down an exact number for how tight every single bolt on a machine needs to be. That single idea became essential to the automobile industry, and then to aircraft manufacturing, where a torque wrench wasn't a convenience. It was the difference between a plane that stayed together and one that didn't. Every torque spec you've ever seen in a car manual traces back to a frustrated water department employee trying to stop pipes from leaking. By the early 20th century, the wrench had split into dozens of specialized descendants. The ratchet and socket set let mechanics work in tight spaces without removing the tool between turns. Sweden's Johan Petter Johansson patented his own adjustable pipe wrench design in the 1890s, which eventually evolved into the crescent-shaped adjustable wrench most people picture today. Companies like Snap-on, founded in 1920, built entire sales empires around selling specialized wrench sets directly to mechanics out of rolling trucks. None of this happened because the wrench needed to look impressive. It happened because industries kept running into problems. Round pipes, inconsistent torque, cramped engine bays, and someone kept building a slightly better lever to solve them. The wrench you own right now carries all of that inside it. A coachmaker's fix for mismatched wagon wheels. A myth about a man who never existed. A Civil War veteran's wooden carving that saved the plumbing industry. And a frustrated city worker whose 1918 idea is the reason your car doesn't fall apart. It's just a piece of metal with a jaw on the end. It's also 200 years of problems nobody else wanted to solve. If this surprised you, subscribe. There's a lot more hidden history sitting in the tools in your garage, and we're covering one every week.